Friends would.
Thank you all, everyone, for joining us today. I'm Carl Kane. For those of you, anyone who doesn't know, I'm Carl Kane, Artistic Director of Gretna Music. And that was the Saraband from Bach's D minor violin partita, performed by our special guest today, Ariel Horowitz. Ariel, thank you for joining us.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here with you all today and to be joining you all in Mount Gretna very soon.
Yay, yes, Ariel will be joining us actually for 3 of our summer concerts, September 3rd and 4th. If Ariel's name rings a bell, it might be because she was a guest artist on From the Top, the show that WITF, I'm not sure if they still broadcast it, but they certainly did back in the day on Sunday evenings. When she was 16, which was almost a decade ago now. She is now 25 years old, a graduate of Juilliard and Yale, and is performing in major halls around the world with top orchestras and on the major chamber music series around the country and around the world. Ariel, what you've accomplished musically at still a very young age is really impressive. But when I was looking over your biographical information, the thing that really jumped out at me even more than that was how mature you are with your social awareness. You've already done significant work in Holocaust awareness and fighting hunger in New York City, and in support of Native American culture and education. And I'm just wondering, where did that kind of social and cultural awareness come from?
Yeah, well, thank you so much. That's incredibly kind. I grew up in a activist family. My mother is the original post-second wave feminist activist, and she is very, very secure in her conviction that we can all improve the lives of each other if we focus more on community and less on competition. So she instilled that belief into me and my siblings at a very young age. I attended my first protest at the age of 2 months old. I can find a picture of that and send it along. She made me a little baby sign. It was I actually can't even remember the cause or what we were protesting because I was so young, but activism has always been a large commitment in our family, and it's something that I have carried with me as I've progressed through my life, both musically and otherwise. I know that as I was, I suppose, growing in my young career through classical music, it was not lost upon me that classical music tends to be inaccessible for the most part to people outside of certain circles. And I decided that I wanted to make it my mission to not only bring classical music into the broader populace, because I do think it is a very powerful art form, particularly non-vocal music is, one might even argue, rather universal in that, you know, as long as you can hear the sounds, it can mean something for you, no matter the context of your life or your culture or your ethnicity or wherever you come from. But also in that classical music has a lot to learn from the broader populace. I think that a really close colleague of mine always says classical music is like 15 years behind the rest of the performing arts. So I'm hopeful that my efforts will be a very symbiotic relationship between classical music and greater American culture, and a large part of that is in terms of advocating for communities who both can use music and also for whom music can help. So it's been very important to me over the years.
And one of the most interesting projects, or for me, probably the most interesting project you have going is the Heartbeat Music Project. And I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about that.
Sure, absolutely. The Heartbeat Music Project is a almost nonprofit organization. We're currently under the fiscal sponsorship of a really incredible women's culture and music organization called the Roadwork Center. But we are an organization that provides tuition-free music education, instruments, and mutual aid for young students living on the Navajo Nation in grades K through 12. This project was started 5 years ago. I was 19, and we're almost 6. It's getting to be, we're coming up on 6 years, which is pretty crazy to think about.
And I don't want to interrupt, sorry to interrupt, but I think you're being modest when you said the project started 6 years ago. Am I right that you started the project 6 years ago? You were the founder of the project?
Yes, I am the founder and artistic director, and it was a really incredible process to have these young people come into my life. It's been something that has been I don't know what I did to deserve it. They're really incredible. I teach a lot of young people, and the very first summer that we went out, we realized that we needed to add more practice time into the daily schedule because the kids were all coming up to us and just they're like, can we skip recess so that we can practice? Which, you know, was kind of unheard of to me. I would have never thought that an 8-year-old would want to, you know, skip running around to play the violin. So it's been very challenging during COVID. Our community has been devastated in a way that I think, you know, for me personally, I mean, I have existed in a very different pandemic than my colleagues. There is not a single family in our program that has not either lost someone to COVID or had a family member severely disabled by long COVID. When you're talking about a community that has 2 hospitals that serve over 400,000 people, you know, it's one of those situations where if you get COVID, but you can't access the medical care that you need in order to help you fight this thing, a lot of families have been really, really impacted. So our mission has taken on a much broader context, and we've focused predominantly on emergency needs and community allyship. So it's been a hard time for our organization, but I'm hopeful that we can come through it and continue to make really positive experiences for our young people.
I did see 2 questions from someone in the audience. We didn't say where you were coming from today.
Sure. So I'm currently living in a town called Hamden in Connecticut, small-ish town about 20 minutes north of New Haven, and it's about an hour and a half north of New York City.
And Mary was also asking, maybe we weren't clear enough. When you're talking about the work you're doing with the Heartbeat Music Project, geographically, where is that?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So we are very generously hosted by Navajo Technical University, which is the largest tribal college on the Navajo Nation, and I think one of the larger tribal colleges in the country, which is based in Crown Point, New Mexico, which is just on the Arizona border between Arizona and New Mexico.
And I was curious when I was reading over this, and even you're curious now, what drew you to the Navajo? You're originally from Indiana.
Yeah.
What drew you to the Navajo Nation?
Actually, also my mother. She was working as a curriculum consultant at Navajo Technical University. One of the greatest challenges that she was facing was with the leadership at NTU to help their students not only become competitive with students from other major institutions and universities around the country for jobs and graduate fellowships and such, but also to incorporate traditional knowledge and learning into their curriculum. So that was sort of the nature of her work with Navajo Tech. And the dean, I guess now former dean of Navajo Technical University, who's actually our board president, was sort of just pontificating during a lunch break about how much he loved the violin. He's like, yeah, I really wish I could have, you know, played violin as a kid. Like, I'm very happy with my life now, but there are just no opportunities out here on the Navajo Nation for kids to learn music. And my mom is my biggest fan, and of course was like, well, my daughter goes to Juilliard. She could start something for you all.
No pressure.
Oh, yeah, of course. No pressure at all. I was 19, had no idea how to do nonprofit anything, but it's good. The only real way to start nonprofit work is to just be completely naive and have no idea what you're getting yourself into, right? Otherwise, no one would do it. Um, so she called me and was like, "Hey, you're gonna come here this summer," and I was like, "Great." She's like, "You're gonna apply for some grants," and I was like, "Cool. I've never done that before, but I guess again, ignorance is bliss when it comes to nonprofit work." So certainly, I mean, I'm still fairly ignorant now. I'm a nonprofit newbie. I'm still within my first decade. I know that I have colleagues who have been doing this work for several decades, and I have much to learn. But the learning curve has been steep and also very wonderful. So.
And I just wanted before we move off the Harpy Music Project, I just wanted to circle back to one thing you said that you kind of switched during the pandemic. You switched more to COVID relief than to music education, and you've been raising money for. Are you still working on raising money for COVID relief? Is that ongoing?
We are. It's an ongoing effort. We find that again with how things are structured. I mean, it's been many centuries in the making. But many of our students don't have running water at home. They don't have internet at home, so a lot of their families just either are slower to receive information about the pandemic. I mean, I think COVID had been in the general zeitgeist for about 3 weeks before the Navajo Nation generally was informed about what COVID was, which is one of the reasons that there was such an uptick at the beginning. Because of course, if you're not accessing information and you're not making those changes of staying home and working on your hygiene and all of that sort of stuff, and not sharing drinks, not all of that kind of stuff, that's how COVID gets you, right? So it's been a long process now. We are in a very limited capacity offering some virtual programming to students who are able to access our virtual programming. And we have students, like I have a little girl who her mom drives her an hour to the nearest McDonald's to sit in the parking lot to access Wi-Fi to take her flute lesson. So this is a kind of rural community that I mean, I grew up in a fairly rural community in southern Indiana, but it's a level of lack of access to infrastructure that has been also a very huge learning curve for me to learn how to understand and navigate.
If someone is interested in giving, is there a way they could give?
Yes, absolutely. I can put our website in the chat box. And we, of course, we're a very small, we're like Thomas the train engine, like we're the little engine that could. So we rely on our grassroots support. That's been what sustained us over the last 5 years. We're fully, community based, and we're very grateful to build our network and to be in community with as many people as are interested in being in community with us. Our kids are amazing, so they their work and their drive and their passion really speaks for itself. So I think we've been very lucky that people have fallen in love with our kids the way that we have.
Thank you. To get back, circling back to music now, I believe I'm correct in saying that you're not from necessarily what you would call a musical family, where your parents are professional musicians and their parents were professional musicians. So can you tell us a little bit about how you found your way to music as your life's calling, so to speak?
Sure. Yeah, definitely not from a musical family, which is funny because so many of my colleagues are. I feel like, people who generally catch the music bug have parents or aunts or uncles or grandparents who were also musicians. But I found my way into music kind of by accident, which is how most good things in my life seem to happen. I was gifted one of the baby Mozart videos as a child. It's like the dancing toys with like really terrible electronic music productions of Mozart's music. And I was all about it. I really loved it. And I was request for my mom to play it every day. And she eventually got so fed up with, having to hear this music, she was like, I'm just gonna get you a real instrument because I can't like deal with this like little electronic like sing song Mozart. Like, why don't we just put you in a music class? So she got me like the world's tiniest and cheapest violin when I was about 3 or 4. And there was like a little violin class at the Y around the corner. And she put me in that. And about 6 months in, the teacher of the little violin class like called my mom, was like, hey, can you come in? I really need to talk to you about your daughter. And I was not the best behaved child in general. So my mom was like, oh no, like, is she going to get kicked out of this class? Like, is she not minding and behaving? Like, oh, she was like really upset going in. And the teacher was like, your daughter, we need to move her up to like the 7-year-old class because she like has advanced too far and she's just bored. Like, he sits there and like, plays all of the music that we're working on. Like, it's not educational for her. And I was like, I don't want my 4-year-old to like be in a 7-year-old. That sounds, this child already has some behavioral issues. Like, that sounds like a disaster. So she put me at lessons at that. And I just lucked out and got a really incredible teacher who believed in me. And yeah, my mom had no idea what she was doing. And it just happened that I got into all of the right places at the right time. And it was a very steep learning curve for her, and of course also me. But eventually, I think from the time that I was able to conceive of like what a job was, I knew that I wanted to have music be my job. So she's incredibly supportive, and she's like, if you want to do it, we'll make it happen. Would drive me like hours and hours for
Sorry about that.
no worries.
Ariel, I have so many other questions I wanted to ask, but I'm going to run out of time. So I want to ask 2 more questions.
Sure.
Before we get to questions specifically about what you're going to do when you come to visit us, I just have to ask you, in 2007, you co-composed a work for narrator, violin, and bass about the Holocaust and got to perform it at Auschwitz along with the narrator with a Holocaust survivor. I just have to ask about that. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, what that was, and then the experience of actually performing it at Auschwitz?
Yeah, absolutely. It was another, kind of incredible convergence. I was home playing a concerto with the Terre Haute Symphony in Indiana, and I had always, growing up, we'd always driven by this Holocaust museum, and there is not a very large Jewish population in Indiana. I would actually say it's actually quite a small Jewish population in Indiana, and we had always driven by it and wanted to go in and visit because I have relatives who were in camps and did not make it out. Of course, I do have some direct ancestors who did make it out because I'm here and in the States and I exist. But a lot of our family tree was lost during the Holocaust. And so we went into the museum and we met this survivor named Ava Kor, who unfortunately is no longer living. But she lived a very, very long life and unfortunately was also one of the twins who was experimented on by Dr. Joseph Mengele at Auschwitz. And she was talking just sort of about her experiences. She's very, very open with everyone who comes into the museum. She ended up in Terre Haute, Indiana, because she met a soldier in a battalion from Terre Haute towards the end of World War II and just settled her life there after being in Europe, came back to the States with him. And she organizes a tour. I guess in the past, her museum still organizes a tour, even though she's no longer living, to go and see Auschwitz. And her philosophy, which was rather controversial in the Jewish community, surrounded forgiveness, because she was one of the first survivors to publicly forgive the Nazis for what they did. And her message was that, of course, like, we don't forget what happened, but that for her own healing and her own process of, just feeling like she could reconcile what happened to her, that she needed to forgive. So a colleague of mine and I composed a piece that directly quotes um, her speaking about her experiences, and we were incredibly honored that we were invited to perform at Auschwitz on the form with Eva Kor, and she narrated, of course, her own quotes, and it was a really moving and kind of life-changing experience to get to be a part of that. It was in 2017, so actually right before she passed away. If we had waited another year, we would have not been able to, have this process with her. And it was something that was just incredibly powerful. And I definitely, there's not really words to describe what it felt like. It was just one of those things that, like, you kind of had to be in the space. And yeah, it was a huge honor to get to be a part of.
There's no graceful way to segue from that to asking you, but talk about what you're going to do at Gretna Music. But if you could say a few words about what the three performances you'll be doing with us in early September.
Sure, absolutely. So excited to play 3 different times for you all in early September. The first time, I believe that I will be playing the Rager Viola Trio with my colleagues Winona Wong and Jordan Beck. And this piece is really unique in that, when you think about a piano trio, you usually conceive of the instrumentation of violin, cello, and piano. This is for violin, viola, and piano, which creates a really interesting timbre, given that the 2 string lines are a little bit more in the mezzo and soprano register, so a little bit higher. And one of the things I particularly love about the piece is that, while of course it is a collaborative, experience, every instrument has its own authority, and there are lots of melodies in which everyone sort of gets to take charge and really enjoy that sort of both soloistic feel, but also a very collaborative feel. So I'm really excited to put this piece together. I'm very good friends with both Jordan and Winona, but I have never gotten to collaborate with either of them before. So it'll be a really cool experience to get to put this together. The next concert that I will be playing that I'm really excited about is also with Jordan and Winona. And we're going to be performing an educational concert. And we're super excited. Of course, kids and education is a huge part of my artistic commitment. I am interacting with and working with children probably about half of my week every week. So it's really exciting always to get to meet kids from around the country and to get to share music with them. And, I always get very inspired by kids. I know that that's not, they're not there to teach us, but they always do. I always learn so much every time that I get to, do one of these types of programs with kids. So I'm hoping that we can have some really exciting musical collaborations with them, and that we get them excited about music and excited about, music as a language for their own creative and self-expression. And the next program that I will be playing is with my colleague, Britton Renee Collins. She's a percussionist, and we have a marimba and violin duo called Vision Duo, which is actually Brit's amalgamation. So VI from violin and then SION from percussion. Together, violin, percussion, vision. Very great. And we have a program called that is definitely a little bit fun. We play a lot of classical music, a lot of contemporary music, as well as non-classical music. So more popular literature as well. So very excited to get to have so many experiences sharing music with your community, and thank you for welcoming me.
Thank you. I've called quite a bit of your time. I have to apologize. I don't know how much time I've left for questions from the listeners, but Suzanne and Mike, do we have time to throw it open to questions from the listeners?
That's up to Ariel. Do you have a few minutes, Ariel, to answer a question or two?
Sure, of course.
Does
Of
anybody
course,
have
no
any
problem.
questions? You'll have to unmute yourselves. We muted you. Anybody have any questions? Nobody?
If you're
Do
shy,
you
you
know
can
the
type them.
times of the concerts yet and the days over that weekend?
I do, but I don't know them off the top of my head, but I could check my Google Calendar.
The first one is going to be the Gretna Music for Kids concert, Saturday the 3rd at 11. Suzanne, Micah, correct me if I'm wrong. The
Yes,
second
11.
one will be the Vision Duo sometime that afternoon or evening. That is at a location TBD. That will be a house concert, open to the public, but at a private home, so a limited capacity. And then the third one will be the following day, September the 4th, and probably 7:30. I think is the time for that concert.
So that's in the Playhouse.
Yeah, that would be the play. That's the main series Playhouse concert, and the Gretna Music for Kids concert. The preceding day is also in the Playhouse.
Oops. The house concert is what instruments?
A violin and marimba.
Yes.
So we need to have a way to hoist the marimba into the house.
Depending on, we're not sure where we're going to have that yet. Maybe Carl and Emmy. This is Carl Ellenberger, our founder, Emmy Snavely, his wife, who's also on our board, and they host many of our house concerts. So I'm not sure where that one will be yet, but
We put it on the porch.
if we had it at your house, we would have to find a way to hoist the marimba up there. Yes.
That's
Other
a
questions?
wonderful.
Thank you. Very nice to meet you all.
Unbelievable and marvelous to hear about.
Thank you.
If anyone is shy and don't want to ask the question, you can type it into the chat. I see.
Oh, don't forget the address.
Yes, I will actually type that in right now.
And
We recorded this and then we'll let people know the link. It seems like we thought live at lunch would work, but it seems more people are watching these recordings at their own time that makes sense for them. So we'll make sure we have the link when we post it. In the little caption, we'll let people know the link to the Heartbeat Music Project.
Great.
So, and if anyone that's pretty easy one, Ariel, heartbeatmusicproject.org.
Gets the point across.
And Suzanne, did you have any ticket giveaway that you wanted to do or no?
We could do one giveaway. We'll give away 2 free premium tickets to the concert of your choice that Ariel will be performing at in September. I'm going to make it a nice, easy one. She talked about her Heartbeat Project and what Indigenous people does she work with in the Heartbeat Music Project. And if whoever puts it in the chat box first.
Oh,
Susan.
Susan.
All right, Susan. We'll get your 2 free tickets to you.
Ariel, again, thank you so much for being here. It was really absolutely fascinating, gripping even some of the experiences you've had. It was an honor to have you here, and we look forward to meeting you in person in I guess it's about 9 months' time.
I look forward to it as well. Thank you so much for having me. It was lovely to meet you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great rest of your day, Ariel, and everyone have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much. You as
Thank you.
well.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.